Today, I have an advanced English fluency masterclass to help you improve all areas of your English. In this masterclass, you'll improve your vocabulary, grammar, listening, pronunciation, and speaking. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Section 1, vocabulary. In this section, let's focus on phrasal verbs. But to make this more advanced, we'll take regular verbs like hold, and you'll learn how to change them into phrasal verbs like hold off. First, let's talk about the regular verb hold. You know what this means, right? To grasp or carry something in one's hand. But what about the phrasal verb to hold off? Do you know what this means? This means to delay or postpone something. Should we sign the contract? Your coworker might ask, and you can say, let's hold off. Now, you can end there, it's a complete sentence, or you can continue back and commonly use the word until. Let's hold off until we hear back from HR. Now, you can also be more precise and describe the action. You would add an additional preposition. Let's hold off on signing the contract until we get more details.
These 10 counties decided to hold off and wait until 2018 to launch their exhibit.
Now, of course, you can put this in the negative. Don't postpone, don't delay. For example, don't hold off on improving, notice that gerund verb because on is a preposition, on improving your English. Do you agree with that advice? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's review one sentence that includes both the regular verb and the phrasal verb. Can you think of your own sentence? Here's mine. Let's hold a meeting to discuss holding off on the project. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's talk about the verb put. Of course, you know that means to place something in a specific position. But what about put off when we turn this into the phrasal verb? This also means to postpone or delay something. For example, they put off something, the wedding, until next year.
I told her it was stupid to put off the wedding just because the hall was gone and she flipped out.
Now, I'm sure you're wondering, but Jennifer, what's the difference between hold off and put off? Great question. Hold off generally is used when you're delaying because you're waiting for more information. But put off is more general. It can be for any reason. For example, they put off getting married. Now notice all of phrasal verbs use prepositions, so your verb that follows is in the ing form, the gerund form. They put off getting married until next year. This is just in general. They're not waiting for more information. It could be for any reason. Now our sentence that combines both. For example, we put off cleaning the garage, we delayed, until next week. Remember, you can use that word until. But we did put the books on the shelf. Can you think of a better one? Now let's talk about the verb pull. Of course, that's exert force to move something closer. But what about pull off? You probably know this one, it's very common. If you pull something off, it means to succeed in achieving something difficult. And that's important, it has to be something difficult. For example, he pulled off something, an incredible victory. So it implies it was difficult. Now we often use this after we do something successful, but it was difficult. I can't believe we pulled it off. So maybe you had a very tight deadline. You didn't think you could achieve it, but you did.
Wow, we pulled it off.
Now let's try one sentence using both. She pulled the chair closer as I told her how I pulled off improving my speaking skills in only 30 days. That's definitely something difficult, right? Can you pull it off? I'm here to help. Now, of course, the verb break means to separate something into pieces by force. What about break off, the phrasal verb? This means to suddenly stop or end something. This is often used with relationships, agreements, or conversations. For example, I can't believe she broke off her engagement. So she was engaged, which means she agreed to get married, but then she broke it off. She ended the engagement. She's no longer going to get married.
Obviously, I felt it deep enough to break off my engagement, change my entire life, and tell all of you.
Now, if it's obvious that you're talking about her engagement, you can say, I can't believe she broke it off. So you can use the pronoun it to replace engagement. Now let's try both in one sentence. You broke my heart by breaking off our engagement. Of course, the verb call means to contact someone by phone, but what about call off? This means to cancel an event. So an event could be a meeting. They called off the meeting. They canceled it.
With the rise of jihadist violence, they began to receive threats to call off their events, which they refused to heed.
Now again, you might be wondering what's the difference between break off and call off. Well, break off is with relationships or agreements. They're personal and emotional, like an engagement. But call off is used with events. These can be business events or community events. So you can say, we broke off our engagement. We ended our engagement. But you can say we called off the wedding because the wedding is an event. So you can say we canceled the wedding. We called off the wedding. Now let's try one sentence with both. She called her friend to let her know that the organizers called off, canceled the event. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Of course, the verb cut means to divide or remove something using a sharp tool. What about cut off? Well, this is when you interrupt or stop someone or something abruptly. For example, she cut me off in the middle of my story. So I was talking and then she said, "Oh, I want to tell you something." She cut me off.
So I started to say that, and she just cut me right off.
Notice in the clip, Obama said, "She just cut me right off." Using right is there for emphasis. It's emphasizing the fact that Barack was cut off. Now, you can use this more politely and say, "Sorry to cut you off, but I accidentally cut the ribbon too short." So notice that one sentence used both. Now, the regular verb drop is when you let something fall on purpose or accidentally. But what about drop off? You know this one, right? This is when you deliver something or someone to a location. For example, you can say to your friend or your sister, "I'll drop you off at the station." Now, you could ask, when is the package being dropped off? Notice this is the passive voice because the package is receiving the action, not doing the action. Let's try one with both. She dropped her pen as she dropped off the reports. The regular verb get, of course, means to obtain or receive something. What about get off? You definitely need to know this one. It means to exit a form of transportation. It can also mean end work for the day. Both of these are very commonly used. You can ask, where do we get off? Now, this would be for transportation. Where do we get off? The train, subway, bus, plane, or boat?
That means you will probably be running late when you get off the train.
But we do not use this with car or van or truck. You would say, please get out of my car to mean exit. Now, you can also ask, what time do you get off? This means what time do you get off work, but you don't need to add the word work. And it means what time do you finish working for the day? What time do you get off? Now let's try one sentence with both. He got some advice, he received some advice from a stranger before he got off the train, before he left the train. Now, of course, the regular verb give is to offer or present something to someone. But what about give off? Ooh, this isn't the most common, but it is useful to know. This means to emit or produce something such as light, heat, or a smell. For example, the fire gave off a lot of smoke. So the fire emitted, produced a lot of smoke.
All things that gave off heat were part of an irreversible process that was happening everywhere.
You can use this in a more positive way. The candles gave off a warm glow as she gave a heartfelt speech. So notice I used both in that one sentence. Now, of course, the verb go means to move from one place to another. What about go off? If something goes off, it means it activates or suddenly makes noise. This is commonly used with alarms and detectors. So you hear this every day, I imagine. But what if you say, oh no, my alarm started going off at midnight? So for some reason, your alarm activated, produced noise at midnight.
I set an alarm, the alarm went off, I did get out of bed, but then I snoozed it.
Or someone might say, open the window before the smoke detector goes off, before the smoke detector activates. Now let's try one sentence with both. Let's go outside until the alarm stops going off. So notice, stops going off. Let's talk about keep. Of course, that means to retain or maintain something. But what about keep off? This means to avoid stepping on or using something. I automatically think of signs that I commonly see that say, please keep off the grass. Please do not step on the grass. I also see signs that say, please keep your pets off the grass. Because, of course, pets can damage it.
And so they got to the tomb of the unknown soldier, and there was a sign that said, keep off the grass. And they thought, dare we?
Now let's look at one sentence with both. She kept off the muddy path, so she didn't go on. She kept off the muddy path to keep her shoes dry. The regular verb let means to allow or permit. What about let off? I really like this phrasal verb. This means to excuse someone from punishment or responsibility. For example, the judge let him off. This means the judge did not punish him. Maybe she gave him a warning. So you could continue that thought and say the judge let him off with a warning. So you add that additional preposition with and then something, a warning. So he received a warning instead of punishment.
She was not going to let me off the hook. And at the time, I wasn't happy about it, but now I'm glad she pressed me like that.
Did you notice that Barack added a few additional words? She wasn't going to let me off the hook. So you could say my boss let me off the hook. So you just add the two words the hook. This means my boss didn't punish me even though I deserved it. So it's a positive thing for me. Let's try one sentence with both. I let my brother borrow my car and he got a parking ticket. Thankfully, the officer let me off, didn't punish me, when I told him it was my brother's fault. So I threw my brother under the bus. Now let's talk about kick. This means, of course, to strike with the foot, but what about kick off? Do you know this one? This means to start an event or an activity. This is commonly used with sports. The game kicked off at 7 p.m. The game started. Or you can ask, when are we kicking off the project? This is commonly used in a business context. It means, when are we starting the project?
And they're very non-digital people, but it's almost like kicking off a discussion.
So let's look at one sentence with both. She kicked the ball to kick off the game, which is where this phrasal verb comes from. The verb rip means to tear something apart forcefully, but what about rip off? Native speakers use this a lot. This means to cheat or overcharge someone. She totally ripped me off. She told me this is a real Louis Vuitton bag. So she cheated me. I paid a lot of money for the bag and it was a fake.
Well, I hope he made a mistake because he ripped me off, so I hope he got ripped off.
Now, we commonly use this with the verb feel. So ripped off is in the ed form, which means it's being used as an adjective. I feel ripped off every time I buy food at the airport, which is true. I feel like I'm being cheated. Now, you can also say $5 for a bottle of water. What a rip-off. So notice here, a rip-off, this is the noun form. So get comfortable with the different forms, the active verb, the adjective form, and the noun form. Let's look at one example using both, and we'll use the active verb. The store ripped her off. The store cheated her, claiming she ripped her jeans on purpose and therefore couldn't return them. Of course, the verb run means to move quickly on foot. What about run off? This has a similar meaning. This means to leave suddenly, often to escape. And the people are usually running when they run off. But it's not a requirement. They can run off in a car, for example, because it's just leave suddenly. So you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his family's savings. So Ross left suddenly and he took his family's savings. So often this is used in a very negative way.
And our middleman, long story short, ran off with our money.
Oh no.
And we never heard from him again.
Or you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his boss's wife, which is how this is also commonly used. So two people who usually shouldn't be together leave suddenly, and they leave their partners behind.
My wife ran off with my business partner after embezzling $1 million from my frozen yogurt franchise.
So let's use one sentence with both. She ran after the thief when she saw him running off with a stolen bag. Section 2, grammar. In this section, we'll take a basic sentence like, I know the answer. This is the present simple, of course. But you'll learn how to change this into something more advanced that natives frequently use. I do know the answer. This is the emphatic present simple. In this section, you'll learn everything you need to know about the emphatic form. Let's review our sentence again. I know the answer. Of course, this is the present simple. The structure is subject, base verb, plus S or ES, and this is used for facts, states, and routines. You know that, right? Now let's review I do know the answer. This is the emphatic form of the present simple. So this sentence is still the present simple, but the emphatic form. The structure is different. The structure is subject plus do or does conjugated with the subject plus base verb. Now, the emphatic form is used to add strong emphasis, to show surprise or contradiction, or to confirm or insist that something is true, especially if someone doubts it. Now, don't worry about taking these notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's review an example where you would use the emphatic form to add strong emphasis. I could say to you, you've been studying for hours. You do know the answer. So I'm emphasizing that fact.
You do know, you do know.
Now let's review an example to show surprise or contradiction. I could say, oh wow, you do know the answer? I'm impressed, or I'm surprised perhaps. And to confirm or insist that something is true, especially if someone doubts it, this is a very common time to use the emphatic form. I could say, you don't have to believe me, but I do know the answer. So I'm insisting this is true. Now, just know grammatically, the present simple is always correct and can be used instead of the emphatic form. So every example I give you in this lesson, you can replace the emphatic form with the present simple. But there is a subtle difference in meaning between the present simple and the emphatic form. If I say you've been studying for hours, you know the answer in the present simple, I'm stating a fact. If I say you've been studying for hours, you do know the answer, I'm emphasizing a fact. Or same thing, oh wow, you know the answer, I'm impressed. Again, stating a fact. Oh wow, you do know the answer, I'm impressed. Stating a fact while also showing surprise or that I thought you wouldn't know the answer. And that's the subtle but important difference. Or again, you don't have to believe me, but I know the answer. Stating a fact. You don't have to believe me, but I do know the answer. I'm stating that fact strongly to emphasize it in the face of doubt. Remember, you're doubting me. Now, so far, all my examples used the verb know, but any verb can be formed into the emphatic form. Let's review some examples. I do go there.
I do go to bed pretty early.
I do live in Canada. I do like pizza. I do write emails every day. I do cook dinner sometimes.
But when I do cook, I'm following a recipe.
I do fix my bicycle when it breaks. I do jump over fences. I do cry during sad movies. That's true. I do dream big. I do die for coffee. So any verb you can think of can be used emphatically. But just know, only use the emphatic form if you're adding strong emphasis, showing surprise or contradiction, or confirming that something is true in the face of doubt. Use the present simple if you're simply stating a fact. So if you just ask me, oh Jennifer, where do you live? I would reply and say, I live in Canada. I'm stating a fact. If you say, Jennifer, where do you live? And I say, I do live in Canada, it sounds awkward because there's no reason to emphasize this. But if you say to me, you don't live in Canada, well now I can emphasize that something is true and say, no, I do live in Canada.
I do live in Nashville, Tennessee. I think everybody knows that.
So far, all the examples have used the subject I, but remember in the emphatic form, you need to use do, does based on the subject. I do love pizza. You do love pizza. He does love pizza. She does love pizza. It, the dog, does love pizza. We do love pizza. They do love pizza. So of course, the same rules as the present simple. You use do with I, you, we, they. Does, he, she, it, third person singular. You already know that. It's the same rule as the present simple. So now you know the difference between I know the answer, I do know the answer. What about these two sentences? I knew the answer, I did know the answer. Well, I knew the answer. Of course, this is the past simple. I did know the answer. This is, yes, you got it, the emphatic form of the past simple. So if you say, I knew the answer, of course, this is the past simple. We have subject plus past verb, and this is used, of course, for completed past actions. If you say, I did know the answer, this is the emphatic form of the past simple. The structure is different. Subject plus did for all subjects plus base verb. And this is used for the same reasons as the present simple. It's used to add strong emphasis in the past, to show surprise or contradiction in the past, or to confirm or insist something was true in the past, especially if someone doubts it. So the exact same reasons why is just the difference in structure between the present and the past. So let's review some realistic sentences. I can say, yesterday you lifted 50-pound weights. See, you did improve.
I think you really did improve night over night.
So I'm using the emphatic past simple to add emphasis to a fact. The fact would simply be, see, you improved. That's the past simple to state a fact. Or I could say, you did call him? I thought you forgot. So I'm showing surprise or contradiction.
Honey, you did call him back because it's really old.
If I simply say, you called him, I thought you forgot, I'm stating a fact in the past, of course. Or if I say, I did send the report on time, I'm confirming or insisting that something was true. Remember, the past. Especially if someone doubts me, maybe my coworker or my boss even. But if I say, I sent the report on time, I'm just stating a fact about a completed past action. Remember that in the past simple emphatic form, all subjects use the same structure, so it's easier. And any verb can be formed into the emphatic form in the past simple, just like we saw with the present simple. So you could say, I did finish my homework. You did call her last night. He did help with the project. She did find her keys. It did rain yesterday. We did watch the movie. They did arrive early. Also keep in mind the emphatic form that you just learned exists in the present or past simple affirmative, which means positive sentences, only. So you can't use the emphatic form with perfect tenses, future tenses, continuous tenses, the negative form, or question form. Present simple positive, past simple positive. Now that you know the rules, quite simple, right? Now that you know the rules and the structure, let's quiz your knowledge. You're going to see a question, and then you need to answer out loud, and your answer must use the emphatic form. And you'll have to look at the question to decide if you need the present or the past. I'm not going to tell you, just to make this quiz more difficult. I'll only give you 3 seconds, so of course feel free to pause the video, think about it, and then hit play when you're ready, and you can say the answer out loud. Question 1, you know how to swim? The answer? I do know how to swim. You're emphasizing this, and notice my question, almost a statement but said as a question. There's an assumption that you don't know how to swim, or there's surprise in this. So that's why you're using the emphatic. Question 2, did he call you yesterday? The answer, yes, he did call me yesterday. The question used did, so you know it's the past simple. And I'm emphasizing the truth of this. Question 3, you don't like coffee, do you? The answer, actually, I do like coffee. You don't need to add actually, or you could say yes, I do like coffee, or you could simply say I do like coffee. And notice in the question, again, there's an assumption that you don't like coffee. So that's why you're using the emphatic form. Question 4, this might be a little tricky, feel free to pause. Question 4, it's okay that you didn't finish the project on time. How would you reply? I did finish the project on time. So the question assumes you didn't, and you want to correct that by saying, no, I did finish the project on time. Question 5, they never help with the cleaning. How could you reply? They do help. They do help with the cleaning. They do help sometimes. But you could simply say they do help. So again, the question states that they don't, and you want to affirm the opposite, insist the opposite. They do help sometimes. How are you doing with this? Question 6, I think I forgot to lock the door. We should go back and check. What could you say? You did lock the door. I saw you. You could add that, or maybe you say, I did lock the door. So you're affirming that you did the action, so the person doesn't have to worry. So again, the person assumes that the opposite is true, and you're emphasizing, you're affirming. Question 7, does she always come to work on time? What could you say? Yes, she does come to work on time. So you're emphasizing that fact. Question 8, why don't you eat vegetables? You can reply back and say, I do eat vegetables, or maybe add, I do eat some vegetables. I do eat certain vegetables. So again, the questioner assumes you don't do something and you want to affirm or insist the opposite. Question 9, we need to discuss why you didn't follow the checklist. You can reply back to this and say, I did follow the checklist. I did follow the checklist. So again, contrary to what the person believed. And question 10, they didn't attend the meeting last Friday, did they? You would say, they did attend the meeting. Now let's keep going with grammar, because there are many common mistakes that I hear beginner to advanced students make. In this section, you'll fix the 12 most common grammar mistakes that I hear all my students make. I'm going to put your English to the test. You'll see a sentence and there is a grammar mistake. You need to identify and correct the mistake. So let's say you want to impress your boss and you say to your boss, I hardly worked today. What is the mistake here? The mistake is mixing up, which means confusing, hardly and hard. The correction is, do you know what the correct sentence is? Remember, this is to impress your boss. I worked hard today. Hard is an adverb, and it means with a lot of effort. So if you want to impress your boss, you should say, I worked with a lot of effort. I worked hard today. Notice the structure is subject plus verb plus hard. I worked hard on the report. I worked hard to finish the report. Now, the original sentence used hardly. The sentence is grammatically correct. Hardly is also an adverb, but it means the opposite. It means barely, almost not. So if you say, I hardly worked today, it means you did very little work. So that would not impress your boss. Now notice the structure is different. We have subject plus hardly, or you could use barely, it's the same meaning, and then your verb, in this case, worked. I hardly worked on the report, you did very little work. I hardly worked to finish the report, you did very little work. So remember, use hard to show you put in a lot of effort. Don't worry about taking these notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Sentence number 2, you need to identify the mistake. I'm extremely hardworking engineer. Again, you want to impress your boss. But what is the mistake here? The mistake is missing article with job titles. So the correction is, how can you correct this sentence? I'm an extremely hardworking engineer. So remember, singular job titles require articles. This is a rule. Your choice of article is a, an, the. I'm an engineer, of course, because engineer starts with a vowel sound. But if you add great as your modifier, as your adjective, then you need a. I'm a great engineer. Because remember, the sentence structure is article, adjective, noun. You can absolutely say, I'm the engineer, but what does this mean? This means you're a specific engineer, the one working on this specific project. I'm the engineer on the project, or you're the only engineer in the company. I'm the engineer. It's only me. Now you can think of student as a job title, and you can say, I'm an amazing student. That describes you, right? So put that's me, I'm an amazing student. You're watching this lesson, you're doing the work. So put that's me, I'm an amazing student. Sentence 3, we are 3 on the project. What's the mistake here? The mistake is using we are instead of there are. I hear this a lot from students, most likely in your native language or that student's native language. That's the structure. But in English, the correction is there are 3 people on the project. So notice how I also added the noun, number plus noun. In English, we use there plus the verb be, conjugated, to talk about the existence of something or the number of things. So the structure is there plus the verb be, conjugated, the number, and then the noun. For example, there is 1 engineer on the project. There are, so now it will be plural. There are 3 engineers with that S because it's plural on the project. Question 4, despite he was tired, he finished the report. What's the mistake here? The mistake is using a clause after despite. So how do you correct this? You can say, despite being tired, he finished the report. This is an acceptable sentence structure, is despite plus gerund. Another correction is, do you know what an alternative way of saying this? Despite the fact that he was tired, he finished the report. So here, notice I kept the clause, but to do that, you need to add some additional words. Despite plus the fact, and then that is optional. And then the clause. A clause is subject, verb, object. It's a complete sentence. Now, a third correction is you could say, although he was tired, he finished the report. So you can use although plus clause. And although has the same meaning as despite in this context. Now there is a fourth correction. Do you know what it could possibly be? You could say, despite his tiredness, he finished the report. Because you can use despite plus noun. So, did you get any of these corrections? Question 5, what's the mistake? If I have some questions, I'll let you know. Do you know what the mistake is here? It's using some instead of any. So the correction is, if I have any questions, I'll let you know. If you have if or a negative, you use any. If you have any questions, please let me know. I don't have any questions. With a positive, you use some. I have some questions about the timeline. You can also use a or one. I have a question, which means I have one question. So that's the singular because remember, some is plural. I have a question, one question about the timeline. Now this isn't just for questions, this is any noun. So if you have any issues, problems, plans, ideas. Sentence 6, I look forward to hear from you. What's the mistake? You know this one, right? It's using the infinitive instead of the gerund. So the correction is, I look forward to hearing from you. So it's to look forward to plus gerund, or you can use a noun. You can say, we are looking forward to your visit, and that's the noun. Or you can use a gerund, we were looking forward to watching the movie. So remember, you need to conjugate to look, that's your verb. And of course, to look forward to means to anticipate with pleasure. So I hope you're thinking, Jennifer, I look forward to watching your next lesson. You could also just use the noun form and say, Jennifer, I look forward to your next lesson. That's acceptable as well. So does that describe you? If it does, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Sentence 7, I'm used to work on a team. What's the mistake here? Do you see it? The mistake is the infinitive instead of the gerund. So the correction is, I'm used to working on a team. So the expression is to be used to. Notice that pronunciation, used to, and then gerund or noun. And this is for a feeling of comfort with someone or something. For example, I'm used to making YouTube lessons. I have a feeling of comfort. You can use this in the negative and say, she's not used to speaking in English yet. She doesn't have that feeling of comfort. Let's review the structure subject plus use plus infinitive. This is used for a routine past action. I used to work on a team. They used to live in New York. Routine past action. Now you can also use the structure to get used to plus noun or gerund. So this is to talk about the transition from not comfortable to comfortable. You can say she's not used to speaking in English yet. So you can say she's getting used to speaking in English. So your verb is get to talk about that transition, and get is conjugated in the present continuous because it's an action in progress. Sentence 8, I need to understand better the requirements. What's the mistake? It's the incorrect word order. So what's the correction? You can say two things. I need to better understand the requirements, or I need to understand the requirements better. Both placements of the adverb better are acceptable. So the adverb comes before the infinitive verb, or the adverb comes after the verb and object, so at the end of the sentence. Sentence 9, I had a difficult time to contact the client. What's the mistake here? Again, it's an infinitive instead of a gerund. So the correction is, I had a difficult time contacting the client. So the structure is to have plus article plus adjective plus time plus gerund. Now you can use a positive adjective. We had, remember your verb is have, so you conjugate that. We had an easy time contacting the client. She always has a frustrating time contacting the client. Now you also use the gerund when you use to have plus problems, difficulties, or challenges plus gerund. You could say, I had problems contacting the client. Or maybe you're thinking, I had challenges learning English until I found Jennifer. Does that describe you? Put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Sentence 10, my boss has been angry in the morning. What's the mistake here? The mistake is using the present perfect, has been angry, with a specific past time reference. Now, in the morning is a specific past time reference because it represents at 9 o'clock a.m. or at 10:30. So the correction, you can say, my boss was angry in the morning because we use the past simple plus specific past time reference, such as in the morning. Another correction, you could say, my boss has been angry since the morning because we use the present perfect with since. This shows that the action started in the past and continues until now. And remember that since represents a starting point in time. So since the morning is like saying since 9 a.m. or since 10:30 a.m. You could also say, my boss has been angry lately or recently. We use the present perfect with lately or recently to show the action started in the recent past and continues until now. The next sentence has two mistakes. So this is sentence 11 and 12. I don't know, how can I boiled this report down? Can you identify one mistake? Can you identify two mistakes? Well, let's talk about mistake one. The first one we see is using a question structure for a statement. So let's review a simple statement. I don't know how I can improve my speaking skills. Maybe you've said this, I don't know how I can improve my speaking skills. So here it's I don't know plus how plus clause. So the clause is subject, verb, and then object. Remember, that was a statement. To ask a question, you would say, how can I? How can I improve my speaking skills? So here the structure is how plus verb plus subject. So the correction for this sentence would be, I don't know how I can, and then what's mistake number two? It's the wrong verb conjugation, and in this case, after the modal. So we want modal plus base verb. I often hear students say, you should to bring an umbrella. This is incorrect because you want the base verb. You should bring an umbrella. So in this case, the correction is, I don't know how I can boil this report down. And if you're not sure to boil something down, this means to summarize the most important information. This is a separable phrasal verb. So there are three correct structures. How can I boil this report down? How can I boil down this report? Or how can I boil it down? Section 3, listening and pronunciation. But you'll also expand your vocabulary and learn correct grammar in this section. In this section, you'll learn how to understand fast English anywhere outside of the classroom, when you're traveling, watching TV, movies, anywhere. To understand fast English, you need to practice listening to fast English. So that's what we'll do right now. You're going to listen to a sentence I say 3 times, and you need to write down exactly what you hear in the comments. Don't worry, after I'll explain everything you need to know. Here's our first sentence. I'll say it 3 times. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. So how'd you do? I said, keep your eyes peeled for the street. Now let's talk about those pronunciation changes. Keep your eyes peeled. Your can sound very unstressed. Your. Keep your eyes. Keep your eyes. And notice how your and eyes link together. You're going to hear that R sound on both sides of the word if we link them. Your eyes, your eyes. So the second word, instead of eyes, really sounds like rise because it has that R. But you have to say it together. Your eyes. Your eyes. And of course, peeled, that ED is a soft D. Keep your eyes peeled, peeled. And for also becomes very unstressed, fur. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. Now notice you hear that R the most in the word street. Make sure you get that R sound, street. Now, do you understand what this means? To keep one's eyes peeled is an idiom. It means to stay alert and watch carefully. So carefully watch for the street so we don't miss it. Now you could say keep your eyes peeled for the client. Notice you use that preposition for and then something or someone. You can keep your eyes peeled, watch carefully for someone, the client. Now in this example, it's the imperative, which is used for an instruction or a direction. I could also say to you, keep your eyes peeled for any opportunities to practice your English. So remember, for and something, and in this case, the something is any opportunities to practice English. Watch carefully. So are you going to keep your eyes peeled for that? If you are, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's look at this sentence. She kept her eyes peeled for the trail markers during the hike. So remember, you need to conjugate your verb keep. In this case, it's the past simple, kept. She kept. And you have to make sure the possessive matches the subject. The subject is she, so it's her eyes peeled.
If you're ever in the neighborhood, keep your eyes peeled.
So keep your eyes peeled for the headlines that will bring it.
So while I don't have answers for you here, keep your eyes peeled.
Let's do this exercise again. I'll say it 3 times. Are we still on for tonight? Are we still on for tonight? Are we still on for tonight? Did you hear what I said? I said, are we still on for tonight? Notice how still and on link together, and you'll hear that L sound on. So it will sound like still on, still on, still on. Again, for can become fur, still on fur tonight, da-da. So notice that syllable stress, the first syllable is unstressed, so to becomes that unstressed ta, and then night is your stressed syllable, tonight, da-da, tonight. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that we made plans, and I'm confirming that our plans are still happening. So this expression is used socially shortly before plans, maybe the day before or the night before, to confirm the person isn't going to cancel that plan. They're still going to go, to show up. So you could say, are we still on for lunch? Now notice for something. In this case, lunch is the plan we have. Now, you can use any time reference. You can say for lunch today, this afternoon, or tomorrow. And this is an alternative to simply asking, are we still having lunch today? So that's the activity, and then I can say, are we still on for lunch? Now, if the activity is known, I can simply say, are we still on for tomorrow if it's known that we're having lunch? So you can just use the time reference. You could also say, are we still on for studying English tomorrow? So the activity is studying English. Now, if I send you a text message and say, are we still on for tonight? You could reply back and say, yup, which is a casual way of saying yes, yup, can't wait. So show some enthusiasm. Or you can say, absolutely, see you at 7 p.m.
You're questioning, are we still on? The confident woman assumes that you're still on.
I'm great, thanks. Are we still on for the kayak trip?
Oh, you bet. I have the kayaks and the equipment.
Let's try this exercise again. I'll say the sentence 3 times. Is the museum walkable? Is the museum walkable? Is the museum walkable? Ooh, did you get this one? Is the museum walkable? So let's talk about the pronunciation for museum. Z. So notice you have that voiced Z sound, museum. And there are 3 sounds, museum, museum, museum. And then the word that maybe you're not familiar with, walkable, walkable. So here there are 3 sounds, walkable. So notice that and then bull. It's not able, it's walkable, walkable. Now let's talk about a very useful word for you to know, to be walkable. So this means that something is close enough to be able to comfortably walk to the location. So is the museum close enough that we can walk there and not be exhausted or sweaty or feel really bad after we get there? Is the museum walkable? So if I send you a message and say, are we still on for lunch today? You could reply back and say, absolutely, but I only have 30 minutes. What's walkable? What's walkable? So what can we walk to quickly because we're short on time? Or I could say a new Thai restaurant opened last week, but I don't think it's walkable. So you can use I don't think, but to make walkable negative, remember it's the verb to be. So you would say, but it's not walkable, or it isn't walkable. There are 2 ways to form that contraction in the present simple. Walkable can be used in a different way, so listen to this sentence. One thing that makes New York City unique is how walkable it is. Most residents don't even own cars. So in this case, walkable is used to describe a geographical area. It can be a small area such as a neighborhood or a large area such as a city, and it means that it's easy to walk in that area.
It's walkable on top of our residential and commercial uses.
These are very different. These are in downtowns, walkable space, no drive-throughs.
They're banal, they're not sustainable, they're not walkable, they're certainly not beautiful.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. Let's head out early to beat the traffic. Let's head out early to beat the traffic. Let's head out early to beat the traffic. Did you get this one? I said, let's head out early to beat the traffic. Notice how head out combine together to sound like head out, doubt. So you hear that D sound on out, head out, head out. In the word early, you want that long R as well, early. You want to make sure you hear that R, early. Now, to beat, because to is a preposition, it becomes unstressed. To beat, to beat. And then traffic, you don't want to hear the R, you want to hear the vowel. Traffic, traffic. And then beat is the same pronunciation as the vegetable beet. Now, do you know what the phrasal verb to head out means? Native speakers love using this phrasal verb. It means to leave a place or start a journey. So someone could ask you, What time are you heading out? What time are you leaving? But it's whatever place you're at. If you're at your home, it means your home. If you're at work or a restaurant, it means those locations. And then you can reply back and say, I'm heading out in the present continuous. I'm heading out around 6:30 a.m. so I can beat the traffic. Now notice here, I said, so I can beat, but in my example sentence, originally I said to beat the traffic. This is the short form of the purpose clause, in order to beat the traffic, but native speakers generally drop in order and just say to beat the traffic. Now, native speakers also commonly start sentences with a purpose clause. To beat the traffic, let's head out at 6:30 a.m. Remember, this means in order to beat. This is a purpose clause, it's not the infinitive. Because in English grammar, we don't start sentences with the infinitive. To make a general statement, you would use the gerund verb. For example, beating the traffic in New York City is always a challenge. Of course, to beat the traffic, this means to avoid the traffic. And if you beat it, it means you get ahead of it. So you leave earlier or later to avoid it. You could also just take specific streets to beat the traffic, to avoid the traffic.
Everybody, let's head out to our areas.
Let's head out into the rainforest and see how she's doing.
Let's head out to the lake. I'll show you around.
Let's do this exercise again. I'll say it 3 times. I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. Did you get this one? I said I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. Let's talk about to get a little, because those sounds really blended together. To get a little, to get a, to get a. So to becomes that unstressed ta. Get a combines together, get a, to get a, to get a. Now little, native speakers, including me, generally pronounce the T's as soft D's. Little, little. Some native speakers really reduce this word and it just sounds like lil, lil, get a lil, get a lil. But you can pronounce those as soft D's. Get a little, little, get a little, to get a little. And then shut eye, we turn that T into a soft D because it's between vowels, and you'll hear it on both words. Shut eye, die, die, shut eye, shut eye. Now what is shut eye? It's a noun and it means sleep. So you can say I tried to get some shut-eye, a little shut-eye, a few minutes of shut-eye. You could replace shut-eye with sleep in all those examples on the break. Now, shut-eye is commonly used for a short period of sleep, such as a nap. For example, he managed to get some shut-eye on the plane. Now notice the verb is get, so you could say he got in the past simple. He got some shut-eye on the plane. And notice that preposition I used with break, on a break. You could also say during a break. Native speakers commonly use on. And of course, a break in the context of work is a short period of time when you're not working. You can say, I called my friend on my break to see, in order to see, so the purpose clause, to see if we're still on for coffee after work. Now, you could also say, hopefully I can get a few minutes of shut-eye before we meet. I'm exhausted.
Let's get some shut-eye.
New studies show that those who are under stress and don't get enough shut-eye could age up to 6 times faster than they would otherwise, giving a whole new meaning to the term beauty rest.
For others, losing shut-eye can result in hormonal imbalance, illness, and in extreme cases, death.
Now let's do a shadowing exercise so you can repeat after me and practice all these pronunciation changes. I'll say each sentence and you need to repeat after me. And I'll say each sentence 3 times. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. Keep your eyes peeled for the street. Are we still on for tonight? Are we still on for tonight? Are we still on for tonight? Is the museum walkable? Is the museum walkable? Is the museum walkable? Let's head out early to beat the traffic. Let's head out early to beat the traffic. Let's head out early to beat the traffic. I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. I tried to get a little shut-eye on the break. Section 4, pronunciation. In this section, you'll learn 5 powerful exercises to improve your pronunciation so you're understood, you sound natural, and you feel confident speaking. Number 1, understand the rhythm of words. What's this? Easy, right? But say it out loud. It's not a banana, da da da, banana. Because that's not the rhythm of English. The English language is a stressed language. This means that not all syllables are said equally, da da da. No. Some syllables are stressed, which means you'll hear them louder and longer. Other syllables are unstressed, which means they're quicker and quieter. Every word in English that's 2 or more syllables has stressed and unstressed sounds. Let's come back to this image. Which syllable is the stressed syllable? Say it out loud. Think about which one is louder and longer. The correct way to say this is banana, banana. So which syllable is the stressed syllable? Banana, da-da-da. The middle syllable is the stressed syllable. It's the one you hear the loudest and longest. That also means that the unstressed syllables need to be quicker and quieter. So instead of ba, it sounds like ba, because it's unstressed. It's the unstressed schwa sound. As a tip, when you're learning new words, make sure you learn the correct pronunciation and identify the syllable stress. The dictionary tells you which syllable is stressed by putting a mark. It looks like an apostrophe in front of the stressed syllable. Now, keeping this concept in mind, do you know who this man is? Do you recognize him? Just say his first name, if you know it, and say it aloud. His first name is... I'm using this man as an example because he has a TV show where he travels around the world and competes against local chefs. Now, most of the time, he's in non-English speaking countries, but the show is in English and all the local chefs have a very high proficiency of English. However, every non-native chef that I've seen on the show pronounces his name wrong because they pronounce it as da-da, Gordon, Gordon, da-da. But that's not how you say his name. But of course, he's polite and he never corrects the local chefs. His name is Dada, Gordon, Dada, Gordon, Gordon. Because the first syllable is stressed, gore, so the second syllable becomes that unstressed vowel sound, din, din, Gordon, Dada. Again, your dictionary is your best friend for learning correct pronunciation. Here's the phonetic spelling. You can see that the syllable stress is on the first syllable, and that upside down E is the schwa, which means it's an unstressed sound. Din, din, Gordon. Repeat after me. Gordon. Dada, Gordon. Now, if you ever meet this celebrity chef, you know how to say his name correctly. For your exercise, spend 1 to 2 minutes reading any article and identify the syllable stress in each word. You can confirm if you're correct by looking in the dictionary. Number 2, understand the rhythm of sentences. Just like words have their own rhythm, so do sentences. In English, content words are stressed, which means they're louder and longer. Content words are nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs. Function words are unstressed, which means they're quieter and quicker. Function words are articles, prepositions, auxiliary verbs, and conjunctions. This is also why native speakers may sound fast to you, or why you may struggle to hear all the words in a sentence. It's because not all words are said equally, only the words you need to understand the meaning, the content words. Let's take this sentence. Which words are the content words? Which words will you say louder and longer? They went to the restaurant by the beach. The content words are went, restaurant, beach. These are the words that you'll hear louder and longer. Because if you only heard those 3 words, you would understand the meaning. Now remember, you still need to have the correct word stress. So this word, restaurant, is more than 2 syllables. So there will be a stressed sound and an unstressed sound. Dada, restaurant, restaurant. Let's try this exercise again with a new sentence. Here's the sentence. Which words are the stressed words, the content words, the ones you'll hear louder and longer? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. The dog is running with a ball. The dog is running with the ball. The content words are dog, running, ball. These are the words that you'll hear louder and longer. Again, if you only heard those 3 words, you would understand the meaning, right? There is only one word that's more than 2 syllables, so you have to think about word stress for the word running. Dada, running. If you master this rhythm of English, you will absolutely speak 10 times better. For your exercise, spend 1 to 2 minutes reading any article and identify the content words and the function words. Focus on one sentence at a time. As a tip, you can combine exercise 1 and 2 together. You can read a sentence and identify the syllable stress of each word that's more than 2 syllables, and you can identify the stressed and unstressed words in the sentence. Number 3, open your mouth wider. This is a very simple way to instantly be more easily understood. And you can certainly do this in your native language as well. You just learned that certain words are said quicker and quieter because you don't need to hear them. That's true. And that's how English is spoken in both casual and professional situations. However, a big reason why students aren't understood is because they're not pronouncing the sounds fully. They don't open their mouths wide enough to fully produce the sound. This is called mumbling. And it's a problem with many kids in their native language, well, at least in English. And kids learn to open their mouths wider as they develop their speaking skills. Adults mumble too, but it's usually when they lack confidence. Imagine you're trying to speak with your mouth full of food. In this case, it's impossible to fully produce the sounds because the food will fall out of your mouth. I'm sure someone has tried to talk to you with their mouth full of food and you can't easily understand them. And this could be in your native language. The solution is simple. Open your mouth wider when you speak. The sounds will be said fully, and your volume will naturally increase, which means you'll say it louder, and your rate of speech will decrease because it takes longer to say the words. But speaking slower will make it easier for you to be understood. Let's see the effect of mumbling. I'm going to say a simple sentence and I'm going to mumble. I want you to notice how my volume is quieter, my speech is faster, and it's more difficult to understand the sounds. Focus on my mouth. Maybe we should postpone the project until tomorrow. I'll say it again. Maybe we should postpone the project until tomorrow. So, was it more difficult to understand me? Imagine you didn't have the writing on the screen. Now I'll say it again and I'll open my mouth wider than I normally would. Maybe we should postpone the project until tomorrow. Maybe we should postpone the project until tomorrow. Notice how some sounds were still louder and longer than others. So doing this exercise doesn't mean you say each sound equally loud and long, because that isn't how the English language is spoken. You still need to remember points 1 and 2 as you do this exercise. For this exercise, read the same sentence you have from exercise 1 and 2 and say it aloud and open your mouth wider than normal. As a tip, when you're practicing pronunciation, it's so important to hear your voice. Record yourself on your phone and listen to it. This feels strange, but trust me, doing this will help you get comfortable with your voice in English, and it will help you identify areas of improvement. You will learn so much by listening to your own voice. I highly recommend it. Now you have 3 exercises that you can do at the same time, and they'll take you about 4 to 6 minutes to complete. Let's keep going with number 4, exaggerate your sounds. For this point, you'll choose sounds that you know you need to improve. Either your teacher has given you feedback or you just feel awkward and uncomfortable with certain sounds. Maybe it's the R sound, or maybe it's the long E sound. You're going to say that specific sound a lot longer than it should be. This is an exercise that you will only practice on your own or in a classroom environment. You will not speak this way in the real world because it isn't natural. This is only a practice exercise, but trust me, it works and you'll get amazing results very quickly. Let's use R as an example because many students struggle with this sound. And let's say you said the word street in a meeting and nobody understood you. So you know that this sound needs improvement. This word is street. There's no syllable stress because it's only one syllable. In a sentence, it would be stressed because it's a content word. It's a noun. Now let's practice exaggerating that R sound. Street. That's how you exaggerate it. How long can you hold the sound? Now, forcing your mouth to stay in that position longer, you are strengthening the muscle needed to produce that sound. And your brain is going to get comfortable with the position of that sound, the mouth feeling of that sound. Let's do this together. Let's say the word street, but hold that R as long as you can. But remember, when you're holding the R, you'll still complete the word by vocalizing the remaining sounds. Are you ready? Can you hold it longer than I can? Let's say it now. Street. I could keep going for another 30 seconds or longer, but that would be boring for you. Remember, this is not how you would say the word in the real world. That would be weird. This is how you practice certain sounds that you need to improve. For your exercise, identify one sound you need to improve and practice exaggerating that sound in different words. Do this for 1 to 2 minutes per day. A very important note on this exercise: not all sounds in English can be exaggerated because some sounds are very quick and it's impossible to hold them out. That takes us to number 5, mirror practice. You can do this exercise for sounds that cannot be exaggerated, but you can and should do this exercise for all sounds. The goal of this exercise is for you to get comfortable with what your mouth looks like when you say a certain sound. That's why it's called mirror practice, because you'll do this in front of a mirror. Now you can also use your phone because you can see the image of yourself on your phone. And that's ideal because you can record yourself and then listen back, which is one of my recommendations. So consider your phone the best mirror you have. Let's take a sound that can't be held out in English, like the J sound. Now remember I shared that all the non-native speakers I heard on the show pronounced Gordon's name incorrectly because of syllable stress. Many students pronounce my name incorrectly because of the length of the J sound. The sound that represents the letter J in English is very fast. You cannot hold out the sound, which means you cannot do exercise 4 with the sound J. But you can see what your mouth looks like when you produce the sound. This will help you recognize when you're not pronouncing it correctly. Your goal is to get comfortable with the feeling of how to produce sounds. But the sound changes based on how it's combined. So let's take 2 very different sounds. The first part of my name, Jen, and the month, June. Notice how my mouth opens wider when I say Jen, N, Jen. And it stays in a more closed position when I say June, Un, June, Jen, June. After practicing this for a period of time, when you're speaking, you'll feel the sounds in your mouth. And you'll know if a sound isn't pronounced simply by how it feels. For your exercise, choose a target sound you want to improve and practice using that sound in different word combinations for 1 minute. And now you have 5 simple yet powerful vocal exercises that only take 10 minutes per day. Section 5, speaking. This is the section you've been waiting for. I'm going to share my best method to help you feel confident speaking in any situation. Today you'll learn a simple 4-step framework to structure, organize, and expand on your ideas. And you can use this framework to answer any question you're asked. This framework is called PREP. Each letter stands for 1 step. P, point. R, reason. E, expand. P, point. Yes, point again. Let's review each step. P, point. This is your main idea or opinion. You start by answering the question directly. Reason. This is where you explain why you gave that answer. E, this is where you expand on your answer. You can do that by giving more information or details, or one of the easiest ways to expand is by giving an example. So you can also think of E as example. P, point again. This is your conclusion or summary. You return to your main idea to finish your answer by saying your point again. So P is point again. Remember, it's point, reason, expand, example, point again. Let's review this using a simple scenario. Someone asks you, how was your weekend? Do you find you only answer using one-word answers like good, fine, great? Natives do this too, because they also don't know what to say. PREP quickly and easily fixes this problem. Here's how you can answer this simple question using PREP. How was your weekend? Point. It was great. That's what you're comfortable doing right now. How about expand on that with the reason? Why was it great? I finally had some time to relax after a busy week. And now expand on that. So how did you relax? Provide more details. I watched a movie called Arthur the King. It's about a man and a stray dog who form a bond during a race. Now remember, you need that point again. So you need a summary, a conclusion. The best way to start this is just say, so overall, it was a relaxing and enjoyable weekend. Just what I needed. You're saying the same thing again. This is a clear, concise, and well-organized answer that sounds a lot more fluent and interesting than simply saying, it was good, or even worse, good. And now the person talking to you can ask you follow-up questions so the conversation will naturally keep going. You can answer any additional questions using the same prep method. It's the same structure every time, but of course your answer will be completely different. In the answer above, I expanded by providing details on how I relaxed. I relaxed by watching a movie. And then I gave some more details about the movie. Remember that you can think of E as example. Basically, I provided an example of how I relaxed. Let's review a completely different question you may be asked in a professional setting or even during a job interview. The question is, do you like working in teams? Let's answer that using the PrEP framework. P is point. Yes, I really enjoy working in teams. Let's keep going with our reason. I think collaboration helps bring out the best ideas. Now let's provide a specific example, and you can even begin using the words for example. For example, last year my team was developing a new product. Everyone had different ideas, and by combining them, we created something truly unique. You're not done yet. You need the second P, point again. So overall, I find teamwork more creative than working alone. Notice how in the E step, I gave a real-life situation. It helped explain the benefit of teamwork in a way that feels personal and authentic. Of course, you can keep expanding on this example or even provide more details to support why you enjoy working on a team. You can use the PrEP framework to provide a concise 20-second answer or a longer 2-minute answer. You would simply provide more examples or more points. A good rule of thumb is a maximum of 3 points in the E section. Let's say you just got back from a vacation in Greece and your friend says, so, how was your vacation? Let's provide a full answer using the PrEP framework, and we'll provide 3 points for the E section. So again, you start with point. It was awesome, even better than I expected. Don't stop there, provide the reason. I've heard great things about Greece, and it definitely lived up to the hype. Now, let's expand with 3 points. First, the food was unreal. I didn't have a single bad meal, fresh seafood, simple ingredients, and everything tasted better there. Second, the pace of life is way more relaxed. No one's rushing, and it honestly helped me relax and reset a bit. And third, the beaches were incredible, super quiet, crystal clear water, and not packed with tourists. You're not done yet. Remember, point again. So overall, our trip was amazing, and I highly recommend Greece. Of course, you could provide more details about each point. PrEP gives you the flexibility to provide a clear, organized answer, and you can decide how short or how long that answer is. Another option with PrEP is to choose one topic, like the food, and expand by providing 3 points on that one topic. Let's try that now with our same Greece vacation example. Point, it was awesome, even better than I expected. Reason, One of the biggest highlights was the food. That alone made the whole trip worth it. So notice here, my reason introduces the topic of food, and now I'll provide 3 points. First, even the simplest meals were incredible. We'd sit down for lunch and have grilled fish, a few dips, and fresh bread, and it was better than most dinners I've had at home. Second, the ingredients were so fresh, like tomatoes that actually taste like tomatoes. Every salad was bursting with flavor, and I usually don't get that excited about vegetables. And third, eating out felt relaxed and unhurried. We'd order a few things to share, sit outside, and just take our time. It made the meals feel like part of the day, not just something to check off. Now, you're not done. Point again. So overall, our trip was amazing, and I highly recommend Greece. Of course, you can use the prep framework in a more professional context, like in a job interview. So let's review a common question you may be asked. Tell me about a challenge you faced and how you handled it. Here's a strong prep style answer. Point. One major challenge I faced was managing a project with a very tight deadline. Reason, we only had 3 weeks, but multiple departments were involved and the scope kept changing. Expand. To solve this, I created a detailed roadmap, scheduled daily check-ins, and clearly assigned responsibilities. As a result, we delivered the project on time and the client was very satisfied. Now you're not done yet. Point again. So in the end, an alternative to overall. So in the end, dealing with this challenge helped me grow as a leader, and I feel more confident with my abilities to handle future challenges. Again, this is a relatively brief answer. You can keep providing more details to the expand section. Even in a job interview, I still recommend following the rule of 3 and limiting your points to 3 main points or examples. Now that you know what the prep framework is, it's time for you to practice. The only way you'll feel confident using the prep framework is by practicing the prep framework. You can practice by answering random questions. This is by far my favorite way to practice. Simply generate a random question, and your goal is to start talking immediately. You can do that easily by following the prep structure. It will be difficult at first, but that's the purpose of practice. The more you practice, the easier it will become. Go online and search Random Question Generator. Click the button to generate an endless supply of random questions. Then answer using prep. As a bonus tip, I highly recommend you record yourself answering these random questions. This is such a powerful way to get feedback on your answers. You can listen to yourself to notice where you paused and hesitated and think about why and how to solve that, or how many word fillers you used, and then you can develop a strategy to solve that. If you want to improve your speaking skills and gain confidence speaking, recording yourself is one of the best strategies. Prep is a powerful, flexible framework that helps you speak more fluently in English. Remember, is point, reason, expand, and point again. Do you want me to keep helping you improve your English speaking skills? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can watch this lesson right now.